Democrats. Joining me now is Congressman Tom Malinowski, Democrat of New Jersey, who sits on the Foreign Affairs and Homeland Security Committees and served as Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor in the Obama administration. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Contrast this for us a little bit. Has the Biden administration made the right moves, in your opinion, in resetting United States foreign policy from the decisions made under Donald Trump?
My goodness, yes, and not just in my view, but I think in the view of millions of people around the world and our allies. It is so refreshing after those 4 years that I want to forget to have a president who is not in love with a North Korean dictator, who doesn't seem to have a desperate desire to be liked by Vladimir Putin, a president who's rebuilding our alliances with democracies and our national competitiveness at home to meet the threat of a rising China, and someone who's just competent and not crazy. We don't have to worry every single day about what Joe Biden might do to throw the world into turmoil.
One of the areas, though, that President Biden is advancing that was also advocated by President Trump was Afghanistan. U.S. troops begin leaving Afghanistan on Saturday. You have been critical of this decision, saying Secretary of State Antony Blinken's suggestion of moderating the Taliban with recognition and aid is a story we tell ourselves to feel better about leaving. Do you feel any better about this decision than you did 2 weeks ago?
Well, so overall, I think President Biden has made all the right calls. This is one where I did disagree with him. I understand why after 20 years, both he and so many Americans would say it's enough. The status quo in Afghanistan is it's not great. There's corruption, there's chronic violence. I just worry that the situation after we leave will be far worse. There have been actually remarkable gains in Afghanistan despite the problems over the last 20 years. Millions of Afghans enjoying freedoms that they never before enjoyed. We have a counterterrorism partner in the fight against Al-Qaeda and ISIS. I don't want to lose that. The decision has been made. This is what we're going to do. I'm focused with the administration on how to make sure that this turns out better and not worse for us and for our many, many friends in Afghanistan.
Speaking of our friends in Afghanistan, do you believe the United States has an adequate and acceptable plan for protecting Afghans who, for the past 20 years, have been working alongside with the Americans?
We're going to have to develop one. There are thousands of Afghans, as you mentioned, who risk their lives to work alongside our troops and our diplomats. We have a moral obligation to them. We have a self-interest in making clear to others who might work with us elsewhere in the future that we're not going to leave them behind. There are also many other Afghans, civic leaders, women's rights activists, teachers, professors, who bet on their country's freedoms and their alliance with the United States. And I fear when the Taliban gains greater power in the country, they are going to be targeted. In fact, the Taliban today is waging a campaign of assassination against these folks all over the country. So we're going to have to develop new mechanisms to enable these people to leave and should they become endangered, to come to the United States. It's easier said than done. As you may know, the wait to get refugee status to come to the United States can be years. And these folks don't have years. So I've been speaking to the State Department about how we can make that system work better for Afghans in the coming months.
Congressman, let me ask you about the building behind me. I know the president's speech is also expected to talk about the storming of the Capitol. You are sponsoring legislation, I understand, to remove part of Section 230. That is protection in hopes of social media companies will stop promoting extremist groups. Explain to us the argument that you're making with this legislation.
The riot on January 6th would not have happened. Thousands of ordinary Americans would not have believed that assaulting the Capitol was a normal thing to do, if not for the fact that we get most of our news through social media today, most of our information, and social media platforms are literally designed to create a kind of individually tailored version of reality for every single American, and in fact, everybody on the planet. so that if your tendency is more conservative, you're going to get more and more and more content that pushes you further to the right. If you're more liberal, you're going to get more and more and more content that pushes you towards the left. If you're susceptible to conspiracy theories, you're going to get a lot of QAnon. That is a design feature of Facebook. That's the problem. We're trying to solve it by saying that these large social media platforms shouldn't have absolute protection from legal liability if they are amplifying, promoting content through their algorithms that leads to an act of terrorism or an assault on our values like what we saw on January 6th, because we want to incentivize them to change basically how they design Facebook, how they design YouTube. And right now, the profit motive is just too grave an incentive for them to keep doing what they're doing.
Are you getting bipartisan support on that?
So it's interesting that there's a lot of partisanship around social media, right? A lot of conservatives and Republicans think that when Facebook or Twitter bans Donald Trump, they're censoring conservatives, and so there's a lot of polarization. But actually, my bill, I think, is more appealing to people on both sides of the aisle because, you know, let's say you're somebody on the right and you believe that Antifa is the biggest threat to America. Well, I think you're wrong, but you should still love my bill because what we're going after is that it's this design feature of social media that pushes everybody, whether we're on the left or the right, to our respective extremes. And so if you believe that we need more sanity and moderation in America, as my more reasonable Republican colleagues do, then this is, I think, an approach that has a lot of appeal. We got more co-sponsors than any other social media reform bill in the Congress. So I expect this to go somewhere this year.
All right, Congressman Tom Malinowski, thank you so much, sir, for your time. Greatly appreciate it.